Hello, story lovers. Tonight, we're diving into a tale of passion, secrets, and choices that could change everything. Hearts will be broken, love will be tested, and every twist will leave you on the edge of your seat.
Comment below where
you're watching from, and if this story moves you, hit like, subscribe, share it with someone who loves a powerful love story, and tap the bell so you never miss the next thrilling chapter. Ready? Let's begin. Asterisk, the champagne glass slipped from Victoria's trembling fingers like liquid starlight, shattering against the marble floor of the Grand Meridian Hotel's ballroom. The sound cut through the elegant chatter like a gunshot, but it wasn't the broken crystal that made her heart stop. It was the horrifying rip that echoed as her desperate grab for balance caught Sebastian Knight's perfectly tailored tuxedo pants, tearing them clean down the side seam. Time crystallized into this single, catastrophic moment. The most powerful, tech billionaire in the city stood before her, his expensive fabric dangling from her white-knuckled grip, his muscled thigh visible through the gaping tear. Around them, conversations died. Phone cameras lifted like vultures sensing carrion. "I'm so sorry," Victoria whispered, her voice barely audible above the blood rushing in her ears. She was 24, working 3 jobs to pay for fashion, design school. And she had just destroyed the clothing of a man who could buy and sell her entire life without checking his bank balance. But Sebastian Knight wasn't looking at his ruined pants. His ice blue eyes were fixed on her face with an intensity that made her skin burn. When he spoke, his voice carried the quiet authority of someone who had never been told no. "You'll stay with me tonight." The words hung in the perfumed air like a challenge. Victoria's mouth went dry. Around them, the city's elite leaned forward, hungry for scandal. "Until this situation is properly resolved," Sebastian continued, never breaking eye contact. "I don't think you understand the value of what you've just destroyed, Miss Sterling," she managed, her voice cracking like old paint. "Victoria Sterling, Miss Sterling." Her name rolled off his tongue like a prayer or a threat. "This isn't just clothing. This is a $12,000 custom piece. The question is, how exactly do you plan to compensate me?" Victoria's knees nearly buckled. $12,000. She made that in 4 months of serving champagne to people who spent more on a single bottle than she earned in a week. But something in Sebastian's eyes stopped her from collapsing into apologies. Beneath the commanding exterior, she glimpsed something raw and hungry, not for money, or something else entirely. "I'll find a way," she said, straightening her spine, despite the tremor in her voice. "Whatever it takes." Sebastian's lips curved into a smile that was equal parts predatory and approving. "I was hoping you'd say that. My car is waiting outside." Sebastian's penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of the city's most exclusive building. Its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view that made Victoria feel like she was suspended in the stars themselves. But it was the loneliness that struck her most. Despite its magazine-perfect elegance, the space felt hollow, inhabited but not lived in. "An impressive collection," Victoria said, studying the modern art that lined the walls. Each piece worth more than her annual tuition. She was stalling, terrified of whatever conversation was coming. "Most people say that." Sebastian loosened his bow tie, the simple gesture somehow intimate despite the distance between them. "Their investments? Appreciating assets. Nothing more." He moved to a crystal decanter, pouring amber liquid into 2 glasses. When he handed her one, their fingers brushed. The contact sent electricity shooting up her arm, and from the way Sebastian's pupils dilated, he felt it too. "About the compensation," Victoria began, but Sebastian held up a hand. $12,000, he said. "Based on your hotel salary, it would take you approximately 6 months to earn that amount after taxes and living expenses." Victoria's stomach twisted. He had already calculated her entire financial situation like a business transaction. "However," Sebastian continued, moving closer, "I have an alternative proposal." The word proposal hung between them, loaded with implications that made Victoria's pulse stutter. "I need someone," Sebastian said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Someone real. Someone who sees me as more than a bank account or a business opportunity. Someone who isn't afraid to challenge me. I don't understand. Be mine for 6 months." The words were raw, honest, desperate, not as an employee, not as a transaction. As someone who chooses to stay, in exchange, your debt is forgiven, and I'll fund the remainder of your fashion design education. Victoria's glass slipped from her numb fingers. But Sebastian caught it before it could fall, his reflexes lightning fast. He set it aside without breaking eye contact. You're asking me to be what exactly? Your girlfriend? Your companion? I'm asking you to be yourself, Sebastian said, stepping so close she could smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating from his body. But to be yourself with me. No pretense, no performance. Just honest connection for 6 months. And if I say no, then you pay the $12,000 and we never see each other again. His jaw tightened. But something tells me you're as tired of being alone as I am. The accusation hit home with surgical precision. Victoria had been alone since her parents' death 3 years ago, working herself to exhaustion to avoid confronting the emptiness that had swallowed her life. 6 months, she whispered. 6 months, Sebastian confirmed. And Victoria, I should warn you about something. What? I don't do anything halfway. If you agree to this, you'll have all of me. The good, the bad, and the parts of myself I've never shown another living soul. Question is, can you handle that level of intensity? Before Victoria could answer, Sebastian's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and his entire demeanor shifted. The warmth vanished from his eyes, replaced by something cold and dangerous. We have a problem, he said, his voice deadly quiet. Someone leaked photos of tonight's incident. They're already online. Victoria's phone exploded with notifications. Text after text from Cameron, from coworkers, from numbers she didn't recognize. Her hands shook as she opened the first link Sebastian showed her. The headline read, Billionaire's Mystery Woman. Tech mogul Sebastian Knight spotted with unknown server after shocking hotel incident. But it was the comment section that made her blood freeze. Strangers were dissecting her appearance, her background, making assumptions about her character and motives that painted her as everything from a gold digger to a calculated seductress. This changes things, Sebastian said, watching her face carefully. The media attention won't die down quietly. If you walk away now, they'll hound you for weeks. But if you stay, if you stay, you'll have my protection, my resources, my ability to control the narrative. His eyes softened slightly. You'll also have a target on your back that will never fully disappear. Victoria stared at the cruel comments multiplying by the second, feeling her normal life crumbling in real time. She looked up at Sebastian, seeing her own desperation reflected in his face. 6 months, she said finally. 6 months, he agreed, pulling out a phone. Marcus, prepare the contract. Start monitoring all media mentions of Victoria Sterling immediately. As Sebastian made the call, Victoria realized she had just agreed to something far more dangerous than paying off a debt. She had just stepped into Sebastian Knight's world, where every move was scrutinized. Every relationship was strategic, and privacy was a luxury that no longer existed. The question was, which one of them was the hunter, and which was the prey? 3 months into their arrangement, Victoria had learned that Sebastian Knight collected secrets the way other people collected art. Expensive, dangerous, and always perfectly displayed where only he could see them.
Yes.
She discovered the first. One by accident, finding a file marked Sterling Victoria Background Investigation in his home office. The manila folder contained everything. Her parents' accident report, her financial records, even photos of her sketching in the hotel. Break room weeks before their encounter. You knew, she said, when he found her standing in his office at midnight, the file spread across his desk like evidence of a crime. You knew exactly who I was before I ever tore your pants. Sebastian didn't deny it. He stood in the doorway, wearing only black sleep pants, his chest bare, looking like a fallen angel caught in the act of creation. Yes. How long? I'd been watching you for 6 weeks. His voice was steady, but she caught the flicker of shame in his eyes. You fascinated me. The way you moved through that ballroom like you belonged somewhere else. The fire in your eyes when you looked at those wealthy guests, like you were seeing through their facades. Victoria's hands shook as she picked up a surveillance photo of herself. The champagne incident. It wasn't an accident, was it? The champagne was real, Sebastian said, stepping into the room. Your reaction was real. But I orchestrated the opportunity. I needed a reason to approach you that wouldn't send you running. The betrayal hit her like a physical blow. For 3 months, she had been living in what she thought was a fairy tale, falling deeper in love with a man who had been manipulating her from the very beginning. "You psychotic bastard," she whispered, and Sebastian flinched as if she'd slapped him. "Victoria, please let me explain." "Explain what? That you're a stalker? That everything between us has been a lie?" She was shaking now, fury and heartbreak warring in her chest. "That I've been nothing but an experiment to you?" "No." The word came out raw, desperate. "That's not what this is?" "Then what is it, Sebastian? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you found an interesting toy and decided to play with it for 6 months." Sebastian moved toward her, and Victoria backed away instinctively. The hurt that flashed across his face was so genuine it made her chest ache. "I've never felt about anyone the way I feel about you," he said, his voice breaking. "Right, never. I'm 32 years old, and I've never woken up next to someone and felt grateful just to be breathing the same air. Never had someone challenge me, make me laugh, make me want to be better than I am, built on lies, built on necessity." Sebastian's composure finally cracked. "Do you think someone like me knows how to approach someone like you? Do you think I have any experience with authentic connection? I'm a billionaire, Victoria. People don't see me. They see my bank account. They see opportunity. We're the first person who looked at me like I was human. So you manipulated me into caring about you? I created an opportunity for us to meet organically. Everything after that, every conversation, every touch, every night you chose to stay here instead of going home to your empty apartment, that was real." Victoria stared at him, seeing the truth and the deception tangled together so tightly she couldn't separate them. "The woman at the gala," she said slowly. "The one who bumped into me. She was working for you?" Sebastian nodded reluctantly. "The hotel manager who was so eager to fire me. You paid him to overreact." Another nod. "Jesus, Sebastian. Do you hear yourself? You orchestrated my entire life falling apart so you could swoop in and save me. I gave you a choice, based on lies." They stared at each other across the room, both breathing hard. Victoria felt like she was seeing Sebastian clearly for the first time. Not the wounded, lonely billionaire she'd fallen in love with, but the calculating businessman who got what he wanted by any means necessary. "I need time," she said finally. "How much time?" "I don't know. Maybe all of it." Sebastian's face went pale. "Victoria, please, don't let my methods overshadow what we've built. Don't let my past mistakes destroy our future." "Your past mistakes?" Victoria laughed bitterly. "Sebastian, this isn't a past mistake. This is who you are. This is how you operate. You see something you want and you take it, regardless of the cost to anyone else." She moved toward the door, but Sebastian blocked her path. "Don't leave," he said. "Not like this. Not when we're this close to something real. Get out of my way. Victoria, I love you." The words hung between them like a blade. It was the first time he'd said it, and it was both exactly what she'd dreamed of hearing and the cruelest thing he could have chosen to say. "You love the idea of me?" she said softly. "The fantasy you created. The girl who accidentally stumbled into your life and fell for your wounded soul routine. But that girl doesn't exist, Sebastian. She never did. She's standing right here." Victoria looked at him for a long moment, memorizing his face, seeing past the beauty to the broken man beneath. Despite everything, she still loved him. That was the cruelest part of all. "No," she said finally. "She's not." She pushed past him, and this time he let her go. But as she reached the elevator, Sebastian's voice stopped her cold. "There's something else you should know." Victoria turned, dreading whatever final revelation was coming. "Your parents' accident?" Sebastian said, his voice hollow. "It wasn't an accident." The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, but Victoria couldn't move. She could only stare at Sebastian as her entire world shifted on its axis one more time. "What did you say?" "I'll tell you everything," Sebastian said. "But only if you stay." Victoria's parents had been killed by a drunk driver on a rainy Thursday night 3 years ago. She had memorized every detail of the police report. It visited the intersection where it happened so many times, the local officers knew her by name. It was the defining tragedy of her life, the reason she worked herself to exhaustion rather than face the silence of her empty apartment.
Oh.
Now Sebastian was telling her it was a lie. "Sit down," he said gently, but Victoria remained standing by. The elevator, her finger hovering over the call button like a lifeline. "Talk," she said. "Now." Sebastian ran his hands through his hair, suddenly looking older than his 32 years. "Your father worked for Meridian Industries," he began. "In their research and development division, he was developing software that could revolutionize data encryption, making it virtually impossible for anyone, including government agencies, to access protected information. My father was an accountant. That was his cover. The real work was classified." Sebastian moved to his desk, pulling out another file. "David Sterling was one of the most brilliant programmers I've ever encountered. His work threatened several major players in the tech industry, including my own company." Victoria's legs suddenly felt weak. She gripped the elevator doorframe for support. "3 years ago, your father reached out to me," Sebastian continued. "He wanted to defect, bring his research to Knight Innovations instead of completing it for Meridian. He said they were planning to sell his work to foreign governments." "You're lying?" "I wish I was." Sebastian opened the file, revealing documents in her father's familiar handwriting. "We were supposed to meet the night he died, but someone else got to him first." Victoria snatched the papers from Sebastian's hands, recognizing her father's careful script, his signature, his personal code phrases that only she would know. The documents outlined a meeting with Sebastian for that Thursday night, the same night her parents had died. "Meridian Industries had your parents killed," Sebastian said quietly. "Made it look like an accident to cover up what your father was trying to do. I've spent the last 3 years gathering evidence, trying to build a case against them." "Why didn't you go to the police?" "With what proof? A car accident scene that was cleaned up within hours? Witnesses who suddenly developed amnesia? Victoria Meridian Industries has connections that reach into every level of government. They're untouchable through conventional channels." Victoria stared at the documents until the words blurred together. Her parents hadn't died because of a random drunk driver. They'd been murdered because her father was trying to do the right thing. "That's why you were watching me," she said slowly. "Not because you found me fascinating, because of my father." Sebastian was quiet for so long that Victoria looked up at him. His face was a mask of pain and regret. "Initially, yes," he admitted. "I wanted to understand what kind of person David Sterling's daughter was. Whether you knew anything about his work. Whether you could be trusted. And I fell in love with you before I ever spoke to you." His voice was raw with honesty. "Watching you sketch in that break room, seeing the way you cared for the other hotel employees, the fire in your eyes when you talked about your dreams, you became more than David Sterling's daughter. You became the only person who mattered." Victoria felt like she was drowning in revelations. Everything she thought she knew about her life, about Sebastian, about their relationship, was built on layers of deception and tragedy. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "Help me destroy them," Sebastian said. "Meridian Industries killed your parents and covered it up. They're still out there, still operating, still ruining lives. But I have a plan to expose them. I just need someone on the inside. Someone like me. Someone exactly like you." David Sterling's daughter, applying for a position at Meridian Industries. They'd never suspect their victim's child of working against them. Victoria looked at the documents again, seeing her father's hope for a better future. His trust in Sebastian Knight, his belief that the right thing was worth dying for. "It's dangerous," Sebastian warned. "If they discover who you really are, what you're doing, they won't hesitate to kill you the same way they killed your parents. And if I say no, then they win. They get away with murder and continue destroying lives." Sebastian moved closer, his eyes intense. "But I'll respect your decision. I'll give you new identity documents, enough money to start over anywhere in the world, and I'll never contact you again." Victoria felt the weight of choice pressing down on her like gravity. She could walk away, start fresh, leave the past buried. Or she could risk everything to get justice for her parents and prevent other families from suffering the same loss. "There's something else," Sebastian said softly. If we do this, if we take down Meridian Industries, there's a good chance I'll go down with them. What do you mean? Some of the evidence I've gathered came from illegal sources. Corporate, espionage, hacking, blackmail. If it all comes out during the investigation, I'll face criminal charges. Sebastian's smile was bitter. Might be trading my freedom for justice. Victoria stared at him, finally understanding the true scope of what he was asking. You'd risk prison to avenge my parents? I'd risk everything, Sebastian said simply. Because they deserve justice. Because you deserve the truth. And because some things are more important than self-preservation. Victoria closed her eyes, thinking of her parents, of the 3 years she'd spent believing their death was meaningless. When she opened them again, Sebastian was watching her with an expression of desperate hope. Okay, she said. Let's destroy them. But as Sebastian moved to embrace her, Victoria held up a hand. This doesn't change anything between us, she said firmly. We work together to take down Meridian Industries. But when it's over, we're done. The lies, the manipulation, the surveillance. I can forgive it for the sake of justice, but I can't forget it for the sake of love. Sebastian's face crumpled. But he nodded. I understand. Do you? Because I need to know that you can put the mission before your feelings, for what you want from me? Yes, Sebastian said, but his voice broke slightly on the word. Victoria looked at him for a long moment, seeing the man she'd fallen in love with, and the manipulator who had orchestrated their meeting warring within the same body. Then let's begin, she said. Tell me how we're going to make them pay. The Meridian Industries building rose from the city center, like a glass and steel monument to corporate power. Victoria stood at its base 6 weeks later, wearing a tailored interview suit and an identity so perfectly crafted that even she sometimes forgot it was a lie. Sarah Chen, recent MIT graduate, orphan, brilliant programmer seeking her first position in data security. The hardest part wasn't infiltrating the company, it was working alongside the people who had killed her parents while pretending to be grateful for the opportunity. Marcus Kellerman, Meridian's head of security, was the man who had ordered the hit. Victoria knew this because she'd spent weeks listening to his phone calls through the surveillance equipment Sebastian had helped her plant. Kellerman was careful, paranoid, but he had one weakness. He bragged to his mistress about his work, seeking validation for deeds he couldn't publicly acknowledge. The new girl is settling in well, Kellerman said during one recorded conversation. Sterling's daughter would be proud to see someone so much like her father working here. She only knew how close she was to the truth. Victoria had listened to that recording in Sebastian's penthouse, her hands shaking with rage as Kellerman laughed about her parents' murder. Sebastian had held her as she cried, his own eyes wet with unshed tears. That was before everything went wrong. They know, Sebastian said, bursting into Victoria's apartment at 3 a.m. His face was pale, his usually perfect hair disheveled. They know who you are. Victoria was instantly alert. Months of living a double life having trained her to sleep lightly? How? Someone leaked your real identity to Kellerman? They're planning to kill you tomorrow during your meeting with the security team? Sebastian pulled out his phone, showing her a series of text messages. We have to get you out of the city tonight. Victoria stared at the messages, feeling the walls of their carefully constructed plan crumbling around them. Who leaked it? Sebastian? It was quiet for too long. Sebastian, who leaked my identity? I did. The words hit her like bullets. Victoria actually staggered backward, her vision graying at the edges. What? I leaked your identity to Marcus Kellerman this afternoon. Sebastian's voice was dead, hollow. In exchange for a guarantee of your safety and evidence that will put him away for life. Victoria couldn't breathe. After everything they'd been through, all the lies and revelations and tentative trust, Sebastian had betrayed her again. You sold me out. I saved you. Sebastian stepped toward her, but Victoria backed away. Kellerman was getting suspicious. He was planning to have you investigated anyway. This way I control the narrative by making me his next victim. By making him think you're his next victim, while we record him confessing to everything. Sebastian pulled out a small device. This is a wire. When you go to that meeting tomorrow, you'll be wearing it. Kellerman will threaten you, tell you, exactly what he did to your parents, and we'll have everything we need to destroy him." Victoria stared at the recording device like it was a poisonous snake. "You want me to walk into a death trap? I want you to help me finish what we started." Sebastian's eyes were desperate. "This is our only chance, Victoria.
Oh.
If you run now, Kellerman will disappear and we'll never get justice for your parents. If I stay, I'll be dead, not if I'm there to protect you." Victoria laughed bitterly. "Protect me, like you protected me from your lies. It's like you protected me from months of surveillance and manipulation." "I know you don't trust me anymore," Sebastian said. "I know I've made mistakes that can't be forgiven, but I'm asking you to trust me one more time. Let me do this one thing right." Victoria looked at him, seeing the man she'd once loved beneath the layers of deception and betrayal. Despite everything he'd done to her, she could see that he genuinely believed he was saving her life. "What happens to you when this is over?" she asked. "Prison, probably. The FBI will want to know how I obtained the evidence against Kellerman. When they trace it back to my illegal surveillance and corporate espionage, I'll face charges." "You're sacrificing your freedom for my parents' justice?" "I'm sacrificing my freedom for your peace of mind," Sebastian corrected. "You deserve to know that your parents' killers paid for what they did, even if you never forgive me for how I made it happen." Victoria picked up the recording device, feeling its weight in her palm. Such a small thing to hold the power of justice or death. "If I do this," she said slowly, "and we get Kellerman's confession, you let me walk away forever. No more surveillance, no more manipulation, no more inserting yourself into my life. Yes. And if something goes wrong tomorrow, if Kellerman kills me before we get the confession." Sebastian's face went white. "Nothing will go wrong. Promise me something," Victoria said. "If I die tomorrow, don't let it be for nothing. Make sure every detail of what Meridian Industries did comes to light. Make sure other families don't go through what I went through. Victoria, you're not going to die. Promise me." Sebastian stared at her for a long moment, then nodded. "I promise." Victoria clipped the recording device to her blouse, feeling it settle against her heart like a second skin. "Then let's finish this." The next morning dawned gray and cold, matching Victoria's mood as she entered the Meridian Industries building for what she knew might be the last time. The elevator ride to the 32nd floor felt like ascending to her own execution. Marcus Kellerman was waiting in the conference room, flanked by two security guards who looked more like mercenaries than corporate employees. "Sarah Chen," Kellerman said, his smile predatory. "Or should I call you Victoria Sterling?" Victoria's heart hammered against her ribs, but she forced her voice to remain steady. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Of course you don't." Kellerman opened a file on the table, revealing surveillance photos of her with Sebastian. Documents about her parents, even pictures of her childhood home. "Did you really think we wouldn't discover who you were? David Sterling's little girl, all grown up and playing spy." Victoria remained silent, letting the wire capture every word. "Your father was a brilliant man," Kellerman continued. "Stubborn, but brilliant. Could have made millions working with us. Instead, he chose to be a hero. What did you do to him?" "The same thing I'm about to do to you." Kellerman nodded to his security guards, who moved to flank Victoria's chair. "Your parents died because they threatened our business interests. You're going to die because you're too much like your father for your own good. So you admit it," Victoria said. "You killed them. I ordered their deaths. Yes, made it look like an accident. Very clean, very professional." Kellerman leaned back in his chair, enjoying his moment of power. "The drunk driver who hit them was one of our employees. He died in a car accident 2 days later. Loose ends, you understand." Victoria felt sick, but she forced herself to keep recording. "And now you're going to kill me the same way?" "Nothing so dramatic. A simple workplace accident. You'll fall down an elevator shaft. Very tragic. These old buildings can be so dangerous." That was when the conference room doors burst open. Sebastian Knight walked in, flanked by FBI agents, his face a mask of cold fury. Behind them came more agents, cameras, recording equipment. "Marcus Kellerman," the lead agent announced. "You're under arrest for the murders of David and Ellen Sterling, as well as conspiracy to commit murder, corporate espionage, and racketeering." Kellerman's face went ashen as he realized he'd been recorded confessing to everything. "You set me up," he snarled at Victoria. "We set each other up," Victoria replied, standing as the agents moved to arrest him. "The difference is, I was trying to get justice. You were just trying to commit more murder." As Kellerman was led away in handcuffs, Sebastian approached Victoria slowly, carefully, like she was a wild animal that might bolt. "It's over," he said softly. "Yes," Victoria agreed. "It is." They stared at each other across the conference room. Surrounded by FBI agents and evidence of a conspiracy that had destroyed both their lives in different ways. "What happens now?" Sebastian asked. Victoria looked at him for a long moment, seeing past the manipulation and betrayal to the broken man who had risked everything to give her justice. "Now you go to prison," she said, "and I go home." "Victoria, I don't," she interrupted. "Don't say anything else. You gave me what I needed. My parents' killers will pay for what they did. That's enough." Sebastian nodded, understanding in his eyes. As the FBI agents approached him with handcuffs, he looked at Victoria one last time. "Sorry," he said, "for all of it. But mostly I'm sorry that I'll never get the chance to love you the way you deserve to be loved." Victoria felt tears threatening, but she held them back. "Goodbye, Sebastian. Goodbye, Victoria." 6 months later, Victoria stood in her own boutique, surrounded by her original designs and the quiet satisfaction of a dream finally realized. Sebastian had been sentenced to 3 years in federal prison for corporate espionage, but his lawyer had negotiated a deal that kept the worst charges off his record. He'd also left her everything. His penthouse, his assets, his entire fortune, with a simple note, "Build the life you were meant to have." Victoria had donated most of it to charity, keeping only enough to start her business and ensure her financial security. She didn't want Sebastian's money, but she understood the gesture for what it was. His final attempt to make amends for the ways he'd hurt her sometimes. Late at night, she found herself thinking about him, wondering if he was lonely in his cell the way she was lonely in her beautiful, successful, carefully controlled life, wondering if he regretted saving her, or if he regretted the methods he'd used to do it. But those thoughts always led to the same conclusion. Some people were meant to love each other from a distance, cross the wreckage of their choices and the weight of their mistakes. Victoria Sterling had gotten her justice.
Astia.
Sebastian Knight had gotten his redemption. It would have to be enough. The end.